Hi, I am Anna. I come from www.ntvforex.com. The dollar softens ahead of the FOMC Analysis. http ntvforex.com News ID 5A907191152020 12:40:59 p.m. Overview NBSP. The capital markets are relatively quiet so far today as the FOMC meeting gets underway. NBSP equity markets in the Asia-Pacific region, but Japan and Australia advanced, and the regional benchmark rose for the fourth consecutive session. NBSP European stocks are a little firmer. NBSP The 3-day advance has lifted the Dow Jones Stock 600 by about 1.0%. NBSP US shares are trading higher, and the S&P 500 is poised to gap higher. NBSP benchmark 10-year yields 1-2 BP higher in Europe, and the US 10-year is little changed near 68 BP. NBSP The dollar is heavy. NBSP The euro traded at $1.19, and the dollar has been unable to resurface above 106 Japanese yen. NBSP The greenback is also slipping against most of the emerging market currencies. NBSP gold is extended yesterday's recovery but is just above the middle of the $1,900–$2,000 range for the better part of the past month. NBSP oil is firm, but the October WTI contract remains within the range established a week ago, $36.15–$38.45. NBSP Asia Pacific China reported better than expected industrial production and retail sales data. NBSP August industrial output rose 5.6% from a year ago. NBSP The median forecast in the Bloomberg survey was for a 5.2% increase following the 4.8% advance in July. Of note, crude steel output rose 8.4% year-over-year, while aluminum production increased by 5.5%. NBSP retail sales were expected to be flat after falling for the past several months. NBSP instead, it rose by 0.5%, year-over-year. NBSP While this is a step in the direction of more balanced growth, Beijing's policies still seem to favor supply over demand. NBSP Lastly, China reported fixed asset investment, and at 0.4%, it was in line with forecasts and shows sequential improvement. NBSP The takeaway is that the world's second largest economy is continuing to recover. NBSP Japan joined South Korea and China to ban German pork entirely. NBSP Germany is trying to persuade them to replace the total ban with a regional one. NBSP Japan's ban makes China's move not necessarily as political or impolitic as it may have appeared. NBSP China and the EU paid lip service to ideas that the 7-year-old investment pact negotiations can be successfully concluded this year. NBSP However, relations are at a low ebb, and China's recent effort to bolster the role of state-owned enterprises goes in the opposite direction that the EU is pushing. That said, the US-China Phase 1 trade agreement, including a few dozen specific market opening measures, and China appears to be implementing these. NBSP The dollar is in a narrow 20-tick range against the Japanese yen through the European morning 105 Japanese yen and 60 sen 105 Japanese yen and 80 sen. Expiring options suggests the greenback may struggle to resurface above 106 Japanese yen today with $1.60 BLN in options struck between 105 Japanese yen and 95 sen and 106 Japanese yen. NBSP On the downside, 105 Japanese yen seems too far away, and it is protected today by a $1.10 BLN option that will roll off today. The Australian dollar is firm, near its best levels in 2 weeks, and trying to re-establish a foothold above $0.7300 and was perhaps encouraged by the reiteration of the RBA's assessment that the Aussie is fairly valued. NBSP It has frayed resistance near $0.7330, and a close above it could signal another try at the $0.7400 level seen on September 1. Meanwhile, the greenback continues to fall against the Chinese yuan. Today's 0.5% decline is the most in 6 months. NBSP The dollar gapped lower and fell to about 6.7730 Chinese yuan, making the yuan the strongest in the emerging market universe today. It is at its best level since May 2019. The PBOC also appeared generous in its money market operations, injecting 600 Chinese yuan BLN via the one-year MLF. NBSP Europe. The internal market bill passed the first reading yesterday handily 340-263 despite the lambasting by several high-profile conservatives. Only 2 Tories voted against the bill and several abstained. NBSP. There may be further rebellions in the next 2 readings. NBSP. If it passes the next 2 readings, which seems likely, it will go to the House of Lords. NBSP. The unelected upper chamber can stall and delay, but it is next to impossible for it to stop a bill that is approved by the House of Commons. NBSP. The EU is striking back. NBSP. In retaliation for the move to renege on the withdrawal agreement, the EU has postponed a decision that had been expected tomorrow on allowing UK institutions to continue to clear euro transactions for EU-based clients. NBSP. It was generally assumed that Brussels was going to let some transition period so as not to disrupt the markets. Still, over time, there is little doubt that it wanted a premier capital centre on the continent. NBSP. A decision is needed by the end of the month as the largest clearer LCH reportedly must notify its clients if the swap book is to move from the UK. NBSP. There were 2 economic reports of note today in Europe. NBSP. The first was the UK. NBSP. The unemployment rate ticked up to 4.1% in July from 3.9% in June. NBSP. The claimant count rose by 73.7k in August after a revised 69.9k increase in July, initially 94.4k. Average weekly earnings, excluding bonuses, rose by 0.2%. NBSP. It is the first sequential increase in over a year. NBSP. The furlough program that is to end next month continues to disguise the extent of the weakness of the labor market. NBSP. The second report was the German ZEW investor survey for September. NBSP. It was better than expected. NBSP. The expectations component had been expected to fall, but instead, it rose to 77.4 from 71.5. The assessment of the current condition came in at 66.2 from 81.3. NBSP. The median in the Bloomberg survey forecast a 72.0 reading. NBSP. The euro saw $1.19 in Asia and found support in Europe near $1.1860. NBSP. It looks set to challenge the highs in the North American session. NBSP. There is an option for about 635 MLN euros at $1.1910. NBSP. Recall that the high last week, on the ECB meeting, was just shy of $1.1920. NBSP. On the downside, there are options for 3.2 BLN euros struck between $1.1830 and $1.1850, with the lion's share at the higher end of the range. NBSP. Sterling rose by almost 0.4% yesterday, its biggest gain this month. NBSP. It is trading inside yesterday's range $1.2775–1.2920. NBSP. This seemed to mostly reflect short covering in the face of the US dollar's weakness. NBSP. Today, sterling appears to be helped by some unwinding long euro short sterling cross positions. NBSP. A break of 0.9200 pounds sterling could spur a move toward 0.9150 pounds sterling initially. NBSP. America. As the FOMC meeting begins, the U.S. reports August industrial production and September's Empire State Manufacturing Survey. NBSP. Industrial output is expected to have increased by 1% after a 3% increase in July and a 5.7% rise in June. The Eurozone reported its aggregate industrial output yesterday for July. NBSP. It rose 4.1% after a 9.5% increase in June. NBSP. In the U.S., manufacturing output is expected to have slowed to 1.3% after increasing by 3.4% in July. NBSP. Capacity utilization is forecast to have edged up to 71.4% from 70.6%. NBSP. The Empire State Survey slowed from 17.2 in July to 3.7 in August, which disappointed forecasts, but was an outlier compared with other manufacturing surveys. NBSP in September, it is expected to have increased to 6.8. NBSP Canada reports July manufacturing sales and existing home sales for August. NBSP housing in Canada, like in the US, has been a leading sector in the recovery. NBSP, however, it is expected to begin moderating. NBSP separately, Canadian banks cautioned the government to reintroduce fiscal discipline even though the country has among the lowest debt burdens among the G7 65%. They pressed for productivity-enhancing investment, like Childcare. Canada has one of the lowest women participation in the labour force among major countries rather than focus merely on demand. NBSP note that tomorrow Canada reports August CPI. NBSP OPEC downgraded its forecast for demand by 1 million barrels a day. NBSP it also boosted the outlook for non-OPEC output by almost 400k barrels a day, mostly due to upward revisions in projections of U.S. output. NBSP the fact that producers in the Middle East and elsewhere, including the U.S., NBSP have cut prices for Asian shipments appears to reflect weakening demand and rising inventories, including products like diesel. NBSP Brent and WTI are near 3-month lows. The U.S. crude inventories are expected to have increased last week by a couple million barrels. NBSP it would be the second consecutive weekly gain after a 6-week roughly 34 mln barrel drawdown. NBSP a small draw is expected in gasoline and distillates. NBSP on a separate but related issue, the price of Brent is off more than 40% year to date. NBSP the euro has risen by about 5.8% against the dollar. NBSP the US dollar is in the middle of a 1.3100 Canadian dollars 1.3200 Canadian dollars range. It is lagging behind the other dollar bloc currencies. The consolidative phase is likely to end soon, and we favor another leg lower for the greenback. The low for the year was set in January near 1.2960 Canadian dollars. Meanwhile, the greenback is pushing lower against the Mexican peso for the third session and is drawing near MXN 21.0, which has not been seen in 6 months. On a break, the next technical objective is near 20 Mexican pesos and 75 centavos. The nearly 4.5% yield on Mexican bill seats is a key driving force behind the peso's recovery. With the latest gains, the peso is still off more than 10% against the dollar this year. Subscribe our channel to receive the news as soon as possible. Thank you for watching. If you want to read real-time news, text messages to MT5 Expert Advisors page at https://m.me/mt5.expert.advisors.